The police couldn't stop this Irish gangster, Jerry the Monk Hutch. On a dreary Friday afternoon on February 5th, 2016, the Regency Hotel in Dublin was bustling with the excitement of boxing fans and members of the media who had assembled for the weigh-in of the Clash of the Clans event that was being organized by MGM Promotions. A celebration of Irish boxing was intended to be the purpose of this event, which was co-founded by Daniel Kinahan and Frank Warren, a well-known promoter. Rather than that, it became the scene of one of the most appalling and audacious gangland attacks that Ireland has ever seen. It was precisely 2:30 in the afternoon when a silver Ford Transit van arrived at the hotel's front door. Inside, there were 5 armed individuals. Some of them were dressing up as officers from the emergency response unit. There were 2 males who entered the building with automatic rifles. One of them was wearing a blonde wig, while the other was wearing a flat cap. After a few moments, there was an explosion of commotion as bullets flew through the air. Guests and journalists dispersed looking for a place to hide. One individual, Daniel Kinahan, was the target of an assault by 3 other assailants who entered the premises armed with AK-47s. However, Kinahan, who is believed to be the leader of a massive international narcotics gang, was able to evade capture. When it came to luck, his close friend David Byrne did not fare as well. The lobby of the hotel was the location where Byrne, a well-known figure in the criminal underground and a close friend of Kinahan, was killed by gunfire. The perpetrators of the attack fled in the same silver van, which was subsequently discovered fortified and deserted, a characteristic of organized crime. This was much more than a typical gang hit. The shooting that took place at the Regency Hotel utilized a military-style operation that was carried out in front of the public and the press. In a matter of hours, the nation became aware that it had been the target of an act of gangland warfare. The authorities rapidly began to establish a connection between the assault and an old but rekindled feud, which would ultimately result in the loss of nearly 20 lives and transform the face of Irish criminality. It was Gerard "Jerry" Hutch who was at the center of it all. On April 11, 1963, Hutch was the 6th of 8 children to be born in Dublin's North Inner City. He was the 6th kid overall. As a child, he was raised in the impoverished conditions of the public housing on Foley Street. Patrick, his father, worked as a laborer, and Julia, his mother, did her best to keep the family together when she made it possible. In a community that was plagued by unemployment, addiction, and neglect, little Jerry began engaging in petty theft at the age of 8. He was found guilty of stealing a bottle of red lemonade and was punished for his violation. Hutch was a regular in Dublin's juvenile courts by the time he was a teenager. He was transported to and from St. Patrick's Institution and Mountjoy Prison on a regular basis. But rather than allowing himself to be broken by the system, he worked to improve his skills. In a subsequent statement, he referred to prison as a university of crime, a place where he obtained the knowledge to not only survive but also prosper. Hutch transitioned from minor crime to organized heists while he was in his late teens. He did this with the guidance of Alan Kelly, a veteran criminal who assisted him in this transition. In 1987, when he was only 24 years old, he was the mastermind behind the heist of a Securicor van at Marino Mart, which resulted in the theft of an astounding £1.3 million. This was Ireland's largest cash theft at the time. In the course of his criminal activities, Hutch became more calculated, more ambitious, and less likely to fail. He abstained from using narcotics, avoided getting involved in public feuds, and made significant investments in real estate, gradually establishing the appearance of legitimacy. It was because of his unassuming way of life and his conscious decision to avoid ostentation that he became known as the Monk. However, a man who was responsible for some of the most cunning and greatest crimes in Irish history was hiding behind the demeanor that appeared to be serene. The heist that took place at the Brinks Allied Depot in 1995, which resulted in a profit of £2.8 million, was executed with military precision. As a result of Hutch's ability to keep one step ahead of police authorities, he became notorious and untouchable. In the months that followed, there was a widespread spill of blood across Spain and Ireland. Just 3 days after the attack on the Regency, gunmen from Kinahan carried out the murder of Hutch's brother, Eddie, who was a taxi driver. This was done as a form of retribution for the death of Byrne. The dispute would result in the deaths of over 20 people over the course of the subsequent 2 years, the majority of whom were associates, family, or mistaken targets. Irish society was shaken to its core by the bloodshed, which compelled law enforcement to launch a comprehensive operation against organized crime. Over the course of a protracted international manhunt, Spanish law enforcement officials apprehended Hutch in a restaurant in Fuengirola in the year 2021. For the purpose of facing charges for the murder of Byrne, he was extradited to Ireland. Jonathan Dowdall, a former Sinn Féin councillor who later became a state witness, provided testimony that was largely relied upon by the prosecution on numerous occasions. During a conversation that took place in a park in Dublin, Dowdall asserted that Hutch had admitted to being the mastermind behind the attack on the Regency. At the beginning of May 2024, Hutch filed to run for public office in the North Inner City constituency of Dublin. He announced that he would be running a campaign that would focus on issues such as anti-corruption, housing, crime prevention, and poverty. He used the phrase, "from the streets for the streets," as his slogan. Both the political elite and the relatives of the victims were astonished and upset by the move. A number of people interpreted it as a publicity gimmick, while others regarded it as a strategic attempt to alter his image and save his legacy. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.